On May 8th, 2026, the Pentagon did something it hasn't done before. It opened up a website, war.gov/UFO. More than 160 declassified files. Federal agents, Apollo astronauts, infrared video off the coast of Greece, and one quote that left investigators stunned. Here's what's in the Pursue files, and what isn't. A federal law enforcement agent stands in the dark somewhere in the western United States. He raises a high-powered spotlight. He aims it at something he can't quite see. The beam travels 50 yards, and then, according to his own account preserved in a Pentagon slide deck, the light stops, mid-air, on nothing in particular. He re-aims at the same spot. The beam resumes, normally. That account is now a U.S. government record, released by the Department of War under a new program called Pursue. And the question buried inside it is the one the Pentagon will not answer. What was the light hitting? May 8th, 2026, the U.S. Department of War, the agency formerly known as the Department of Defense, publishes a website at war.gov/UFO. On that site sits the first tranche of declassified files on unidentified anomalous phenomena. The program is called Pursue. It stands for the Presidential Unsealing and Reporting System for UAP Encounters. The release contains more than 160 records. Reporting varies. Some outlets count 161, others 162. The materials draw from 4 agencies: the FBI, the Department of War, NASA, and the State Department. Notably absent from the first batch, the CIA, the DIA, the NSA, and the NRO. The files span 8 decades. The oldest material dates back to 1944 and 1945. The most recent videos were captured between 2020 and 2026. The chain of command on this release is unusually direct. In February of 2026, President Donald Trump issued a directive ordering federal agencies to identify and declassify records related to UFOs, UOP, and extraterrestrial life. The order was built into the architecture for Pursue. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth stated the goal was, quote, maximum transparency. He said the Department of War is, quote, in lockstep with the President on UAP disclosure. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard signed on. FBI Director Kash Patel issued a supporting statement. NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman said the agency would, quote, follow the data and share what we learn. The Pentagon framed the materials carefully. These are, by their own description, unresolved cases. Many of the files had not yet been analyzed for anomaly resolution. The government was not making determinations. It was opening the vault, and it promised more. Additional tranches every few weeks, rolling. Of everything inside the first Pursue tranche, one document has drawn the most attention. It is 4 pages long. It is dated 5/8/2026, prepared specifically for the Unsealing. Its title, The Western U.S. Event. The document describes 4 distinct UAP sightings. They occurred in 2023. The witnesses were 7 federal law enforcement special agents. Their identities have been redacted. The document refers to them as only US Per 1 through US Per 7. The location is also redacted. We know only that it happened somewhere in the western United States. The agents were organized into 3 two-person teams. Over a 2-day period at dusk, 6 of them independently reported the same thing: large orange orbs. The agents called them mother orbs, and these orbs were, according to the report, emitting smaller red orbs in groups of 2 to 4. 2 of the agents, US Per 5 and US Per 6, separately reported a large glowing orange orb hovering near a rock pinnacle. They estimated that it was 500 to 600 meters away. They estimated that it was the size of a small helicopter cockpit. Later, the Pentagon's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, AARO, remeasured. AARO put the object at approximately 1,050 meters away, and 12 to 18 meters in diameter, considerably larger and farther than the agents had thought. One agent described the object as, quote, similar to the Eye of Sauron from The Lord of the Rings, except without the pupil, or maybe an orange storm electricity bowling ball. Another agent viewing the object through night vision goggles reported that he could, quote, vaguely see a bright star or two in the distance through the object. Partial transparency. That's what the document records. And then there is the Spotlight account. US Per 5, attempting to illuminate the object, watches beam apparently stop at roughly 50 yards on nothing in particular. When he re-aimed it at the same spot, the beam projected normally. Arrow described this 7-agent encounter as, quote, among the most compelling within Arrow's current holdings. But here's what is not in the document. No photographs of the actual objects, only artist renderings and a diagram. No independent radar corroboration, no satellite confirmation, and no official analytical conclusion about what the spotlight phenomenon was. The witness quote is there, the determination is not. The Western U.S. event is not the only file that has triggered a new investigation. Inside the first tranche, NASA released imagery from Apollo 12 and Apollo 17. One photograph in particular has reopened a 54-year-old question. Taken in December of 1972 during Apollo 17, the image shows 3 dots arranged in a triangular formation in the lunar sky. According to the release, the Department of War opened a new case to investigate that photograph. They obtained the original film. The tranche also contained 2 pieces of military video. The first, from 2023, was recorded by U.S. Central Command. It shows a UAP off the coast of Greece, in infrared. The object, according to the release, executed multiple 90-degree turns at approximately 80 miles per hour. The second clip is from June of 2024, recorded by U.S. Northern Command. The footage was filmed over the United Arab Emirates and shows what the Pentagon describes as an inverted teardrop with vertical trailing mass. These are not the only files. There are dozens of videos in the first release and over 100 PDFs. But these are the pieces of evidence the Pentagon itself chose to highlight. The ones with the cleanest provenance. The ones the agency was willing to put a name and command behind. And taken together, they sketch the boundaries of what disclosure in 2026 actually means. Government collected sensor data. Government employee testimony. A lunar photograph from a manned mission. No bodies, no craft, no final answers. The reaction to the Pursue release split almost immediately along familiar lines. Sean Kirkpatrick, the former head of Arrow, told the Associated Press that the documents do not contain evidence of alien contact. Documents, in his words, interviewing the aliens, do not exist. Mick West, an independent UAP researcher and longtime skeptic, dismissed the entire release. He said it contained, quote, nothing really interesting. He called it, quote, more dots, more parallax. But the response from inside the disclosure community was more measured. Christopher Mellon, a former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence and now chair of the Disclosure Foundation, called the release a, quote, meaningful step towards transparency, but he added a warning. Data alone, he said, is not disclosure. Mellon also noted something else. The scale of what exists, he said, is itself a revelation. On Capitol Hill, the reactions were political. Representative Tim Burchett thanked President Trump for, quote, keeping his word. But on the Joe Rogan Experience, Burchett predicted the public would not receive even half of what they should. Representative Anna Paulina Luna went even further. In March of 2026, she demanded the release of 46 specific UAP videos identified by whistleblowers. On X, she stated that those 46 videos are expected in a later tranche. The Pentagon had not confirmed that. What the Pentagon has confirmed is the rolling schedule. Reuters reported plans for another release roughly 30 days after the first, placing it sometime in June of 2026. More tranches to follow. So the question that hangs over Pursue is not really about what was actually released on May 8th. It is about what comes next and what doesn't. Now we move into less certain territory. The Pursue release has neither confirmed nor dispelled what Wikipedia characterizes as a long-standing conspiracy theory: the belief that the United States government has concealed knowledge of non-human intelligence for decades. Around that void, theories have grown. The first and most widespread is the limited hangout theory. The idea is straightforward. By releasing benign or ambiguous material, orange orbs, lunar dots, infrared blurs, the government creates the appearance of transparency while continuing to conceal the most sensitive programs. The UFO news outlet observed that the release does not address the crash retrieval programs. That observation has become a focal point for skeptics of the disclosure effort itself. The second theory builds on the Spotlight account. Some observers, and we emphasize not Arrow and not the Pentagon, have interpreted the beam stopping at 50 yards on nothing in particular as evidence of a cloaked or invisible physical object. The release document offers no determination on this. The witness quote is preserved. The interpretation is left to the reader. The third claim comes from a researcher named Flowers, quoted in Defense Scoop. The allegation is that the US government conducted disinformation campaigns dating back to the 1950s, producing false UAP documents as cover for real weapons programs. We note that this is single-sourced. We report it as an allegation, not a fact. A fourth theory concerns the next tranche. Reporting states that the second release will focus on underwater encounters, what researchers call USOs, unidentified submerged objects. No primary government source has confirmed this. It remains, at this point, pure speculation. And then there is Representative Burchett's prediction that the public will not even see half of what they should. It is not evidence, it is a prediction from a sitting congressman with access to classified briefings. Make of it what you will. What we can say factually is this: the Pentagon released more than 160 files. It described them as unresolved. It withheld the identities of witnesses, the locations of sightings, and any actual final determinations. It committed to more. Whether Pursue represents the beginning of genuine disclosure, or the most sophisticated act of information management in the program's history, is a question the dossier itself cannot answer. The files are public, but the conclusions are not.